Today in this video, I will be talking about a certain topic and why it is not true. The myth I will be talking about and busting today is the polygraph, or the lie detector test, is accurate at detecting honesty. I will also be telling and showing why the polygraph test is not 100% accurate. First, we need to know what the polygraph test is and recognize and understand why the polygraph test is so trusted and relied upon in our society. According to Cornell Law School, quote, "Polygraphs are the most popular lie detector tests used in the United States. Polygraphs measure physiological arousal factors including heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, perspiration, and skin conductivity." End quote. Cornell also says that what polygraph tests measure is the physiological responses, and the changes will indicate whether or not someone's being truthful versus lying. According to Ken Alder in To Tell the Truth, the Polygraph Exam, and the Marketing of American Expertise, quote, "Every society possesses individuals and institutions whose authority depends on their presumed ability to unmask petty falsehoods, if only to better preserve the big ones." End quote. He also says, quote, "Honesty can be read by clothing. Priestly garb or a doctor's coat might be thought to announce trustworthiness." End quote. What I believe this is saying is, in our society, especially in individualistic societies like the US, we have ways to read and perceive someone as honest and trustworthy. But if there's any doubt in that, they would be tested, or we would find a way to test them. And the polygraph is an easy and quick way to get results that we may have already perceived in the back of our head to be true. I'm a huge fan of cop shows, one of my favorites being NCIS. And there are a couple of different instances where the polygraph test is mentioned and even used. The instance I will be going over today is an example in season 7, episode 20, Moonlighting. In Moonlighting, the case of the episode follows the murder of a Navy petty officer when, after finding another body, the case turns out to be related to the FBI. The murder of this Navy officer leads him to someone who was supposed to be in witness protection before he ended up dead. This man had previously taken a polygraph test before, but upon his death he was found with bumps and rashes that coincide with tendinitis. This is most likely because someone slipped a rusty nail or tack into his shoe, causing the polygraph test to be messed up. The FBI agent working on this case, Agent Fornell, says, quote, "Pain messes up the baseline reading when you tell the truth. It makes it difficult to get an accurate read on a lie." End quote. Further into the investigation, they bring in a polygraph operator who has a history with NCIS, having tested the crew in the past. Our operator gives our head agent a polygraph test because he has been avoiding one since he joined NCIS back when it was NIS. What he is told by the director of NCIS is that if he fails the polygraph test, he will lose his security clearance and possibly his job. But eventually, the case ends up coming back up when one of his agents interrupts him with a breakthrough. Eventually, a judge who worked previously with the now murdered person who was supposed to be in witness protection has to take a polygraph test where she is eventually forced to tell some truths because she was scared when bells, buzzers, and noises started ringing from the operator's computer at any physiological response she had. Now, to look at some research that aid my arguments test that the polygraph test isn't 100% accurate at detecting honesty. According to Charles Hauntz, in a comprehensive meta-analysis of the comparison question polygraph test, he says, quote, "Criticism has stated that the motivational setting in experiments is qualitatively different than the motivational setting in the real world settings, where jobs, money, freedom, and even lives are at stake." End quote. What Hans is trying to say is that when taking a polygraph test, you are in a completely different environment than everyday life because it is not a real world setting and could obscure the results in certain ways. This could make someone look even more guilty because they are nervous, or they could be calm because they're used to environments like this, being a scientist or being constantly tested. To further prove this, Ken Alder once again says, quote, "OTA study was considered overly optimistic by the psychologist David Lycan, who pointed out that in field studies conducted under true double-blind conditions, the number of false positives jumped to 47%. That is, the innocent were only called truthful 53% of the time." End quote. Now, if you don't know, a double-blind study is where neither the participants or the researchers know which participants are receiving the control treatment or actual treatment. Even with this, it can still tell us that polygraph tests are not accurate most of the time and that they have some relation to the operator running the test on someone else. Now, there are practical implications for understanding the truth. By knowing that the polygraph test isn't accurate, we can now be more inclined to dig deeper if someone we know is actually telling the truth, and it gets us asking questions. Polygraph tests are also inadmissible in court, forcing people to dig deeper than just taking a test that is meant to give all the answers but can't.